He traveled between the cold majesty of the Andes Mountains and the endless green abundance of the Amazon rainforest, carrying little more than instruments, notebooks, and a patient devotion to understanding the world. Antonio Raimondi spent his life measuring rivers, cliffs, forests, and valleys, yet what he truly discovered along the way was something quieter and far more lasting. Hidden beneath the maps and scientific records, he found a kind of inner stillness that only vast landscapes can offer to those willing to move slowly enough to hear them breathe. Tonight, as the glow of a fading fire flickers softly against the darkness, let us follow him into that immense and peaceful wilderness. Let us climb beside him through cold mountain air where stars hang low above the snow-covered peaks, then descend slowly into the warm and mist-filled embrace of the rainforest below. In the gentle rhythm of his journey, perhaps our own weary thoughts may finally loosen and drift into rest. Long before modern roads connected the mountains to the jungle, South America remained a world of enormous distances and hidden mysteries. Towering cliffs disappeared into clouds. Rivers carved their way endlessly through untouched forests. Entire ecosystems existed beyond the reach of cities, suspended between silence and storm. For many travelers, these landscapes represented hardship and danger. But for Antonio Raimondi, they represented possibility. Born with a deep curiosity about the natural world, he believed that every mountain ridge, every river bend, and every hidden valley carried meaning. The earth itself seemed to him like a vast unfinished manuscript waiting patiently to be read. While others sought fortune or recognition, Raimondi sought understanding. He wanted to know how landscapes connected to one another, how climate shaped life, and how human beings fit into the immense rhythms of the natural world. When he first stood high within the Andes, the air so thin it sharpened every breath, he felt both small and strangely comforted. From those towering heights, the world below unfolded in endless layers of blue mountains, drifting clouds, and distant forests. He realized that the transition between the Andes and the Amazon was not simply a geographical boundary. It was a living bridge between worlds. Cold stone slowly surrendered to warm rivers. Dry mountain winds softened into humid jungle air. Life adapted continuously, changing form while remaining part of the same immense system. This realization stayed with him throughout his expeditions. He traveled for years across remote terrain, often alone except for local guides and the quiet sounds of nature surrounding him. His days were filled with measurements, sketches, observations, and endless walking. Yet despite the physical exhaustion, he found himself growing calmer with every mile. There was something deeply soothing about the discipline of observation. Each morning he unpacked his instruments with careful precision. He measured altitude, studied rock formations, recorded the shapes of rivers, and documented unfamiliar plants that clung stubbornly to cliffsides or flourished in the wet warmth of the rainforest below. These routines gave structure to uncertainty. In a world so immense and unpredictable, careful attention became a kind of shelter. As he descended from the mountains into the Amazon basin, the atmosphere itself seemed to change around him. The crisp silence of high altitudes gave way to the constant breathing of the jungle. Mist drifted between giant trees. Rain fell suddenly and without warning, drumming against broad leaves with hypnotic rhythm. Strange birds called from hidden branches while insects hummed endlessly beneath the canopy. At first, the rainforest overwhelmed him. The abundance of life felt almost impossible to comprehend. Every surface moved with growth. Vines twisted through ancient trunks. Bright flowers bloomed briefly before vanishing back into shadow. Rivers carried entire worlds within their currents. Yet rather than resisting the forest's intensity, Raimondi gradually surrendered himself to its slower rhythm. He learned to pause often and observe quietly. He understood that the rainforest revealed itself only to those patient enough to wait. Some evenings he sat beside the river after long days of travel, listening to water move softly through the darkness while fog gathered across the surface like pale smoke. In those moments, the noise of ambition and expectation faded completely from his mind. The further he traveled, the more he sensed that nature possessed its own profound intelligence. Mountains shaped rivers. Rivers nourished forests. Forests protected soil and climate in return. Nothing existed in isolation. Even the smallest forms of life participated in an endless conversation of balance and adaptation. His scientific work became more than a search for data. It became an act of listening. There were hardships, of course. Illness followed many expeditions. Supplies ran short. The weather often turned violent without warning. There were nights when exhaustion settled so deeply into his bones that even writing in his journal felt impossible. Yet strangely, these difficulties only deepened his connection to the land. Stripped of comfort and distraction, he discovered how little a person truly needed in order to feel alive. Years later, when he reflected on his journeys, it was not the fame of discovery that remained strongest in his memory. It was the feeling of standing alone between mountain and forest while dawn slowly illuminated the horizon. It was the sound of wind moving across high cliffs before descending into distant jungle valleys. It was the quiet satisfaction of tracing a river's path through unknown terrain and realizing that, for a brief moment, he had become part of the landscape he studied. His writings and maps would eventually help generations better understand South America's geography and natural richness. Yet beneath the scientific importance of his work lay something softer and more human. He offered people a vision of exploration rooted not in conquest, but in respect. He showed that knowledge could emerge from humility as much as from ambition. Even after returning to civilization, part of his spirit remained suspended between the Andes and the Amazon. In crowded cities, he still longed for the cold clarity of mountain air and the slow breathing of the rainforest at dusk. The wilderness had altered him permanently. It had taught him that peace was not found through control, but through attention. Through patience. Through learning how to exist within something larger than oneself. Now, as the fire dims lower and the night grows quiet around us, Antonio Raimondi's long journey settles gently into memory like mist drifting across a forest river. His story reminds us that the world still contains places vast enough to quiet the restless mind. Places where rivers move without hurry and mountains watch silently over sleeping forests. So let your thoughts wander there tonight. Imagine the cool winds of the Andes softening gradually into warm rainforest air. Hear distant water flowing endlessly through hidden valleys beneath the stars. Allow the noise of the day to dissolve into those ancient landscapes where everything moves according to slower and gentler rhythms. And as sleep slowly gathers around you, may you find the same calm that Antonio Raimondi discovered between mountain and jungle, a deep and steady peace carried quietly within the breathing earth itself.